You're here,
Taxes.
and we appreciate you being here in Texas. Sure, sure.
And taxes.
Well, again, congratulations on that. I mean, filing that way, that's pretty big step, right? I mean,
Thank you.
it's like you're no longer just a local. I mean, it's not that's kind of a big step, I would think, right? Like you're not just like it's like this is my life.
Yeah, it does
Once
feel.
you put it on paperwork with the government.
Yeah, yeah. Once it's on file with the government, that's when you're official.
Right?
Which is honestly true in most cases. But yeah, I mean, it definitely is kind of crazy. In like, I can't afford to do music full time. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still, a baby band, but it's definitely pretty cool to say that music is even my part-time job, you know?
Sure. Yeah, it's
It
amazing.
feels like a full-time job, but it's a part-time
I'm
job.
sure it's more than a full-time job that equates to like a part-time job as far as lucratively speaking.
Yes. I mean, I also am just, everybody who knows me knows how much of a control freak I am and how I have I just have a really hard time letting go of responsibilities,
Uh-huh.
which makes it even more fun for myself because I'm like, "Oh, no, 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 I'll help with all of the doing all the graphics for socials, and I'll help with the marketing, and all," you know what I mean? Like, I just kind of always wanna do everything.
Sure. Well, you're an
So,
artist and you don't want something to be portrayed not as you envision it, I would think, right? That must be kind of hard
yeah,
to do, to let go of.
definitely. I think I'm learning that more and more, kind of the more resources we have too, is like, you know, I think there's a lot of myths about being a musician,
Uh-huh.
and before I was in a band or before I kind of, you know, knew the layout of the structure of being in a band, I was like, "Oh, well, when I get to be the size," I don't even wanna, like, name specific bands because that's so shady, but it's like, "When I get to be the size of, like, this band, that's like being a huge band," you know?
Right.
And, like, when I was, like, 15, 16, I thought that, like, playing at Baby's Alright in New York was, like, the biggest thing you could do. Turns out it's not.
Have you
Um,
had a chance to do that though?
I did, and we sold it out,
Well, so
which
there
was
you go. I mean, that must have been a huge moment for you as a I
huge,
mean,
huge, yeah, like, huge milestone. But I also think the kind of interesting thing of getting to those milestones is then kind of going, "Okay, what do you do now? What happens after
sure,
that?"
what's next, right?
Yeah, and I think I had a lot of people in my life, um, sort of encourage me to aim a little higher, especially as Pom Pom Squad kind of developed,
Mhm.
you know?
Was that like early like people that were you supportive of you prior to, your band? Like what do you mean by that? I'm sorry.
I mean, like, well, my kind of journey to music is a very interesting one. But basically, music for a long time was like the like, your childhood sweetheart who you ignore for a long time, who's just like, "I'll be here. When you're ready, I'll still be here, and I'll still
Just
be
hang
ready
out
to
over
love
here.
you." Yeah, like they're like,
Yeah.
"I will wait for you as long as it'll take." So in high school, I really wanted to start a band, but I was mostly doing theater,
Uh-huh.
and I would, you know, did like all the plays and did that whole thing, and
Sure.
I actually really didn't like it. It's kind of I had a lot of anxiety around it, and people were really mean. But I actually ended up going to NYU to study acting. Um,
Wow. So you must have
yeah.
been I'd say you're pretty good at it, I would think.
See,
I mean, you're only getting into like one of the most difficult schools ever for especially for acting.
yeah, kind of. Well, it's funny because right. It's like I must have been good enough to get in, but I was told and treated like I was horrible while I was there. Like some of the most like heinous things people have ever said to me were said to me when I was acting. Like you're just not, it's like basically you're like the equivalent of like a coat hanger. You know what I mean? They're literally
Sure.
just like put on this costume and say something. You're the lowest on the totem pole basically. And I think
Right.
they kind of train you to have this mindset of like, well, you're just supposed to accept everything, and if you say no, you're difficult or you're like, you know, you're a pain, you know, you're too much effort.
Oh
So
yeah. I
yeah,
could
and
relate to that as far as like I did radio for 16 years and it was like you go through just like you suck. You should have done this. Why did you say this? And it's just like you're constantly putting yourself up there to be like judged and then just smashed down and you have to like try to come back up and be like and they're
yeah,
they don't
because
want
they're
you to
like,
get too big of a head, so to speak.
well, they're like, this is what your career depends. Well, it's not even that they don't want you to get too big of a head. They don't want you to like know that you have rights and that you can say no to stuff. Is
Sure.
what
Well,
I figure is
yeah.
from is in my experience, you know, like, oh God, I'm trying to think of an example, but it was just kind of like they don't want you to say like, actually that doesn't work for me, and maybe I like know something that you don't in this situation. Like they kind of want, you know, people would it was very culty. Like people would treat our teachers like they were like gods. They were like, oh my God, I got to touch Krista's hand today during an exercise. Oh God, I said a real name. That's bad. It's I shouldn't have said that, but
Who? Kathy?
yeah, Kathy.
Exactly.
It's kind of like, you know, they would talk about teachers like they were, you know, like more than human, and I was just kind of like, you know, you're part of the group, so you kind of have to behave the same. But at the end of the day, I'm like, these are just people, and they don't know me, and they don't, you know. I like will never forget like I had made the decision to transfer to music school because I was just like, can I swear? Is that allowed?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course
Okay.
you can.
I was basically like, fuck this, I'm out. Like
There you
there's
go.
no like this is not happening. Um and I remember like I was in this, you know, and the whole like my whole time in acting school, like all I wanted was for somebody to be like, you were the best, like you had the best performance. And this was this thing, like they would be like, oh, well, this person is the top of the class. And
Mhm.
they'd kind of be like, this person is the best. This person had like a, like they used to call it like a perfect scene, which is like when you do a scene in class and like they don't give you any notes. Like that's like what everybody wanted, was to have a perfect scene, which is like not the point of going to school.
Sure.
Like, why are you paying to go to an institution for somebody to tell you you're already good at this
Yeah,
and you don't
you're
need any feedback from
perfect.
me?
Yeah,
But that's
right,
what
right.
everyone wanted. And so like I, you know, and I wanted that too, because it's like, you know, they would single me out in really gross ways. Like they were like, everyone in this group is really fun. Everyone except Mia. Like it was always some shit like that. Yeah, like
Ouch.
ow, exactly. Like so fucked. But it's like none of these people know about like know who I am, like know anything about me. And so I made the decision to transfer to music school, and I did this play that was like just a horrible, miserable experience, to the point where it was just like I don't remember any of it. I like completely blacked out. I did it for however many nights that I did it, and then I found out that I got into music school, and I was like, I'm gonna go. And they have these like final panels. So I go to my panel, and they kind of give you feedback about, you know, your last couple years. I was there for 2 years, and they're like, you know, they either ask you to, you know, they ask you what your plans are, like, are you going to transfer to a different acting school, which is usually what people do, you know, or are you going to stay here? And, you know, basically they were like, your performance in that play, like you had one of the best performances in all of the groups. It was so grounded and you really understood the character, you know, and we would love to have you come back next semester. You know, what's your plan? And I was like, I'm actually going to transfer to music school. And they just got so quiet. And then just one dude goes, what do you play? Like they had no idea. They had no idea that I like was involved in music at
Music at
all.
all? Wow. This is at
Like they
NYU
knew
still?
nothing. Yeah, this was at NYU.
Oh my
So
gosh.
they knew
Well,
nothing. And again, it's like people get, I'm extremely grateful for my education. I feel like I've learned more from it not being there, not being in that environment, than
sure.
being in that environment. Like the lessons came later when I wasn't so focused on like people telling me that I'm, you know,
Yeah. But is it
not
do you I mean,
ugly.
I would think is it come from because of the, alumni that has came out of that school that it's just one of that I don't know how the question would be like you said the lot that you want to strive for no notes. Like you don't want
Yeah.
to like you don't want to have anyone when to be like, "Oh, you should have done this, you should have done this, you should have done this." But is that like how Angelina Jolie came out of there? I mean, I don't know. Did they
Right.
or is did Adam Sandler walk up to every audition and just crush it? And then they're like, no notes. So this is good. This guy is where you want to strive to be. I mean, I don't know.
Right, like, it's just kind of, I guess when you're on a set or whatever, you're working with, fucking, who's a director?
Like Spike
Fra
Lee or somebody that came
yeah,
out of
you're working with Spike Lee.
there.
Let's like if you go, into the field and you're working on a movie with Spike Lee, that's a situation where maybe you want the director to be like, "You're doing a great job. Can you try it more like X, Y, and Z?" Or maybe in a situation they're like, "That was great. Let's move on." On a set, sure. But like you're
Right.
in a classroom, you know what I mean? And the point of being in a
Right.
classroom is to be like,
Learn.
yeah, like when you're in the field or when you're doing this, like maybe you should try blah blah blah. Not
Sure.
like someone I remember, I cannot remember anymore. I like literally have blocked all of this out. If it was directed at me or if it was directed at someone else, but they said someone said teacher said, "You're too pretty to be so boring."
Ouch.
Ouch.
Yeah.
And it's like if anyone in a job said if I like anyone said that to me, I would be like, "Fuck you." But it's like
Right.
if that's what you're teaching people to put up with, like in their place of work, like fuck that. You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
never gonna get a job in the acting world again. This is me ruining my own career.
I have
You'll
so many
never
friends
work
in the
in this
acting industry
town.
that are just gonna blacklist you from this episode alone.
Probably.
I'm
I would
just
not be
kidding.
surprised. I honestly would not be surprised. They can cast me as a girl who plays in a band.
That's awesome. Well, let's
I don't
talk
know.
about your music. So, how did you get in? Are you
Who?
from?
What?
Are you originally from New York? Born and
I was
raised?
born here, yeah. Well, I was born here and then moved to Detroit, Michigan
Okay.
when I was like little, like probably 5 or 6, and then moved to Florida middle school through high school until college.
Okay. So Florida, like adolescent years, and then you went to college in NYU.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. How did you get into music? Was
Um
family members?
yeah, I grew up around a lot of music. Like my mom and dad have really fantastic music taste, and we were kind of always, there's always music in the car. There's always, music everywhere. Like my parents kind of tried to give us like a cultural education from a really young age.
Hmm.
Like we kind of as a family collectively knew all of these like pop culture references, and I could tell you what actors did what and who did this and who sang on that.
That's cool.
um, yeah, so I grew up around a lot of music and I was always a big music fan. Um, but I don't know, I for some reason there was nothing, and I was a singer too. I've sung since I was little, but like it wasn't until I was 18 that like I was like, "Oh, I can actually like start a band." Like I literally was playing guitar and singing, and for some reason nothing connected for me that I could actually write my own songs and perform them. I don't know
Really?
why.
You were
Yeah.
just what doing covers, like bedroom
Yeah,
covers and stuff like
like
that, or?
just doing covers like, you know, I think once in a while I would like play at an open mic kind of thing, but it was really and truly a hobby.
Interesting. And what
Yeah.
made you decide to like start writing? Like, what was the first time you're like, you know what, I can actually write a song? And then, like, was there a
Yeah.
moment that you remember that happening?
I think I discovered DIY music and the kind of DIY atmosphere that could exist amongst young people in their
Hmm.
respective cities.
Sure.
Um, and so I met somebody who was in a band in Orlando, and he was the first person that I met who was like my age who had a band who was performing, and like he was going on tour and doing all this stuff. And it was strange knowing somebody who was doing these things because they always seemed totally abstract,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
disconnected from anything else.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I think that was the first time I was kind of like, oh, there was a little light bulb moment there. And then when I found kind of DIY labels and like DIY music that had been released on the internet, I was kind of like, I could do that. This seems pretty easy. Like I could throw some songs on Bandcamp. Um, and I got into Riot Girl. I loved like Riot Girl and then got into grunge from there. And I always loved the idea of having like an all girl band and, like wearing matching outfits and doing some like 60s girl group shit, like where I'm like, in the center in one color and they're all in the other color. I don't know.
Sure.
Like that was sort of my first imaginings of having a band was like aesthetically, and then I was like, well, this is actually something that I can do
Mhm.
realistically. Does
Sure.
that make sense?
You know, no, it totally did. But like, you said you were 18 years old when this happened, like around 18.
Yeah, yeah.
When was this, while you were going to NYU, or you said you met
No,
some kid from Florida, like, or were you like a senior in high school or something?
I was a senior in high school when, or no, I was probably like a junior, sophomore, or junior when this guy and I were friends.
Hmm.
And I think it was after my senior year. I had tried to start a band with other girls in my high school. Uh, that just never worked. And my best friend, who's still my best friend to this day, she like drummed in the school band. And so I was like, okay, so you're the drummer, like I'm the
Sure.
guitarist and the vocalist. And I was like, okay, we need a bassist. And there was like one single girl who played bass in the entire school. And we were coming up with band names, and I wanted the band to be called the Lisbon Girls after the sisters in the Virgin Suicides,
Uh-huh.
which is one of my favorite movies. And this girl is like, the Lisbon Girls, like that sounds like the Lesbian Girls. I don't want to be in a band called the Lesbian Girls.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was like, I kind of do. Like,
Yeah, well, that's kind of cool.
I feel like that's sick. But yeah, then the band never came to be because she dropped out.
She didn't
Um,
like the name.
yeah, so it never happened. And then when I was 18, I graduated high school, and my for my birthday, my parents gave me a suitcase and they gave me a ticket to Pitchfork Music Festival in Chicago.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I went and was seeing all of these, at the time when I found them, they were DIY bands, and then they became kind of bigger indie
Sure.
rock bands, and they
As
were all
Pitchfork
people.
is massive for doing, like finding these bands and then they just bloom into these gigantic,
Yeah,
yeah, artists.
exactly. Well, yeah, and it was interesting because it's like, these girls that I would follow on Instagram, and I saw their prom photos and like all this stuff. And then suddenly they were on these stages, and I was like, 10, 20 feet from them. So it all just really actualized it for me. I also think there was this moment where there was one indie band who I really loved, and I had never seen like what they looked like. And for some reason, I assumed that the girl who was the front person was mixed race, like me.
Hmm.
I don't know why. I don't know why I assumed that, but I was like, oh, she definitely is black and is mixed. And then I get to the stage, and she's this like little white blonde girl, and I was like, damn, I really wish that had been what what I thought. And then I was like, it kind of was this thought process that went from there to like, what if I was the girl on stage? Like, what if I was the person who was.
Right.
So I decided I was gonna go home and start a band. And I was in the audience, and there was this dude who, like, we became kind of friends. But it's like I feel like guys in music, especially when I was younger, well, to this, I mean, especially when I was younger, kind of like try to big man you by being like, oh, I'm a musician, like as if you're supposed to be like, that is so hot.
Oh, sure.
Like
Sure.
it's that kind of like, oh,
Some
I play in a
status
band.
thing.
Yeah. And so I used to do this bit where whenever a dude would say something like that, and I think this was the beginning of the bit, is he was like, oh, I'm in a band and I have this band. And I was like, oh, really? Like, I have a band. And he's like, oh, yeah, what's it called? I was like, oh, it's called Pom Pom Squad. And I like fully was like, yeah, I have this band.
Oh, so
And
it wasn't
then,
even a thing? This is
no.
all, oh my God.
That's just how it began. And so then I went home and I like got all of the social media like tags for Pom Pom Squad, so like the Bandcamp, the Instagram, whatever.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, well, I probably should like write some songs now because I
Hmm.
have this Bandcamp and this Instagram, and and I did. And that's how the band started.
But it was just you, and it was basically a fake thing that you kind of, not fake, but in the
Yeah, well,
beginning it was just a dream. It was like
it
a
was a
vision
dream.
vision board.
Yeah, I manifested it into reality. But yeah, I mean that's exactly it was just me. Pom Pom Squad, is my project. And
Uh-huh.
I'm still the kind of writer, creative director, band
Hmm.
leader of Pom Pom Squad, but I have bandmates now, which is awesome.
Cool.
um Yeah, but it started out as a lie.
I love that. That's so cool. Well, with that, so you were going to the festivals, you're meeting these people, and this was just like an idea at the time, and now you have social media handles and what have you. But like all this is going on while you were going to NYU. And when
So
did
that was
you
right before.
okay, so tell me how the NYU thing comes in, and you said you went to another music school. You left
Okay.
NYU to go to another music school. I'm trying to timeline this here.
Oh no, it's all good. So I'm basically what happened was I went to NYU, and I was starting this acting program, and it was really freaky and weird, and I was meeting all these people, and um I had this song that I had written. So I wrote all the early Pom Pom Squad songs. I think there were like 2 or 3
Mhm.
before I got to college. And then I wrote this one called Lux, that I
The one
kind of
that you
had
just
in my, huh?
the most recent one that you just released.
Correct. But I had
Okay.
written it when I was like 16, and I knew it was like my best song. And it was like, well, I wrote it as like a poem, and then it kind of became a song as I got older. And then, but I had this song and I recorded a demo of it. And uh, I was like, I don't know if I should release this yet. Like there was just something about it for me where I like knew it was special. And so my first week of college, after starting acting school and meeting all these people and doing all this shit, I decided, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just put that song on Bandcamp. And
Mhm.
I did, and then the next week it was played on satellite radio. So
Wow. The
yeah,
wait, okay. This is still back before you went to school?
this is now I'm in school.
Okay.
I know
So
I'm trying
when
to
did
help
this
with
yeah,
with
yeah,
the timeline.
I'm trying to timeline it. So when did because the song just came out, right?
Oh yeah,
Like
so this is
last
fun.
month?
So yes, so Lux has been on a
Okay.
journey. Lux has
Okay.
been on an entire. I feel like Lux can be the tie-in point for the whole Pom Pom Squad journey.
Okay.
Because it was the first good song I ever released. So I wrote it, uh,
15, 16
like,
years old.
yeah, and then started the band camp, did the whole thing at
Mhm.
18. Uh, Went to Pitchfork, went to college, and then my first week of college I was like, let me just put this song out, like,
Got it.
you know because I was meeting all these other people who are like in bands, and I was like, well, I have this one good song, so like, why not? So it was a demo version. It was like me singing into a shitty microphone in GarageBand, and my friend, the one who I met from the first DIY band in Orlando, played drums. And yeah, it got scouted and played on Brooklyn Vegan's blog radio show.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is crazy. And it was kind of like I was getting all of this positive attention, and it was like one of the first things in my life that I felt really accomplished about, because it was like, my words and my
Sure.
arrangement, and people liked it. And I think there was sort of a little tiny light bulb there that
Mhm.
I didn't trust or follow. Like I was like, well, maybe this is like what I should be doing. And then I was like, no, 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 I'm here to good acting school. So that's that. I did
Okay.
acting school for 2 years
Got it.
after that,
After this song. Okay.
after the song came out. So now the song is sitting on Bandcamp doing its thing.
Uh-huh.
Um so then should I stop? Please stop me if I need to
No.
stop.
What do you
Okay.
need to stop for?
I don't know.
I don't got anywhere to be.
You're right. I don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, the next order of operations for the growth of Pom Pom Squad was uh kind of like approaching end of freshman year. I'm still in acting. I go to a party, where I'm cast to play a girl at a party, and these dudes come up to me, and they do the classic, like, I'm in a band, and I study music and blah blah blah. And I was like, oh, I'm also in a band. Like, I just kind of was like, I play in this band called Pom Pom Squad. And they were like, oh really? And I was like, hell yeah, like, here's my band camp, I have music on it. And I
Sure.
did. So this time it was like a little bit less of a lie.
And you're like, and I have this
Um,
article on Brooklyn Vegan. Like,
exactly.
kind of a
And
big
it's like,
deal. What band is
yeah, I
what are
was
you
like,
guys called again?
kind of. Well, it was like, I feel like that's one of my favorite things to do is when like people are kind of trying to boast on you as being like, huh? Like just kind of going, like if they're like, oh yeah, like I was hanging out with, I don't
Yeah,
know, like
whoever.
Machine Gun Kelly, being like, I don't know who that is. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like whatever it
who?
is.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no,
Just
that
takes the
like,
power out of the situation,
oh
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
just
Because it's
kills
like
their whole attitude. Like,
and it's
oh,
like I've definitely been the person now who's like an asshole and I need to take my own advice. But anyway, so I hope that someone does that to me one day and then I'll be like, I needed to learn. Um, but yeah, I'm at this party. These guys ask about my band, and I tell them. And then a couple weeks later, one of them reached out and was actually like, "Hey, like I'm trying to produce some music. I really do like your stuff. Would you want to record a few things together?" Um, so we did, and that is how my first EP called "Hate It Here" happened.
okay.
Um, so it was like a couple songs. It was my first time recording anything one outside of my bedroom and two with other people.
Hmm.
Uh,
What was that experience like?
hard.
I
Kind of going back to the control freak thing.
was
Like,
gonna ask you if that tied in a little bit there,
oh
trying
yeah,
to
I
let
think
up
that
the
was
reins a little bit.
yeah. Well, I think it was like an early part of my journey, and also it taught me not to let up the reins at all, actually. But
It proved my point.
I mean, basically, like, they all were studying music in the kind of like music, more technical music school.
Uh-huh.
So they all knew what they were doing. But I sometimes felt like, and maybe this was my own ego, and maybe it was them, and maybe it's both. I felt a little pushed around always, and I felt it was like, I felt like I don't know. I felt embarrassed when I didn't know something, and then they would
Mhm.
kind of like say little things that would just make me feel like bad about myself for not knowing a thing that I had never had experience with. You know what I mean? Which is
Yeah, kind of like,
ridiculous.
yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and so I we ended up making this piece and I was listening to it and just kind of going, I know, like, I have the taste level. Like, when you're a music fan and when you're a person who enjoys like the art form that you do, you're always going to have higher taste than you are skill when you start. And
Sure.
I really was like, I trust my taste a lot and I know what I want out of this, but I fully don't even have the language to express how I would even do it, to use the skill that I want to use, you
Right.
know?
You know what you want to say, but you just don't have the right like vocabulary as far as the technical vocabulary to describe it.
Yeah. And with music production, it's a lot of jargon. There's a lot of stuff that makes total sense when someone explains it to you,
Right.
but seems really complicated and is kind of treated like, oh, this is like a thing that you really have to be in the know to do.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of gatekeepers, and like because if they give you the information, if they open the door, then you're now competition that can come knock them off their pedestal, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, essentially, we were all friendly. They were playing in the band. We finished Hate It Here. Uh, I didn't release it until a year after we finished it because I wasn't happy with it. And I was like, the main kind of producer on that project left the country for like a year to go on a trip, and I was just sitting with this piece of music that I didn't know how to fix. And I remember I was really anxious about it. And he got back into town and I like went to his room to be like, listen, I feel like we have to start this song over. Like, I'm really not happy with it. And it's really upsetting. And like, I just kind of remember, and again, it's like not to like shit on these guys. Like they're all great guys in their own way. But I don't think our bandmate dynamic worked. And essentially like we I like went in and I was like, I really want to change this song. And like they kind of laughed at me. And I remember leaving the room feeling so ashamed of myself and so embarrassed. And that was kind of the moment where I was like, I need to learn how to do everything because like I can't be in another room like that where where somebody laughs at me for
Sure.
saying I need to change my own song because I don't like it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But, after that, essentially they all had their own bands, all of my bandmates at the time, and they kind of had this like shtick where they would book a 4-band bill. So like, at like a DIY venue, except it would be just all 4 of their bands and all of them were like essentially they all played in each other's bands. So people would book 4 bands, but they would realistically be booking one
One
band.
band with 4 people that would just
Switch around
instruments.
Exactly. And
Got it.
so I don't remember why, but there was something that happened where they needed a 4th band and they were like, hey, would you want to play live? We would be your bandmates. You would just have to like, learn how to do it. Yeah, like, well, they'd be like, I mean, I already had the songs written, but they were just like, you would have to like learn to play them and like, do this thing. And I was really scared and like extremely hesitant to accept that opportunity. And then but I did, and we played the first show as Pom Pom Squad, and it was like everything to me. Like immediately I knew that that's what I needed to do. So that's kind of part 1. Curtain close.
Wow. That's well. So from that show, when did you get back in the studio again and put out Al? Was that the second record or
Yeah,
EP?
not for a long time.
Okay.
So basically by the time Al happened, all of those bandmates and I had parted ways, and I was playing solo for a minute in the city and I hated it very, very much. And I had been writing a couple songs. And there was one particular night that kind of like there was a kind of catalyst night where I was trying to play this show and my old bandmates like wouldn't commit. And I was like, I really want to play the show. It was like at a new venue. It was with an artist that, I thought was really cool. And they like wouldn't commit to doing the show. And so, we parted ways, and that booker hit me up and was like, hey, listen, like, can you do this? And I was like, yeah, I could do it. I just don't have a band. She was like, yeah, I don't care. Like, just play. Like, she's like, just get up with the guitar and play. And I did. And it was like this whole like dramatic evening. I like broke up with the person I was dating that morning, and I was freaking out because this was my first time playing alone. Like, just a whole day.
Yeah.
And then I get to the venue, and serendipitously, all 3 of my new bandmates were there at the same time.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. So it was like kind of meant to be.
It was. I feel like I have a friend named Michael who I also met that night, who he describes things as like magnet days, like just days where like everything comes together exactly as it's supposed to.
Sure. I like
And
that
did,
magnet
like,
days. I haven't heard
a
that
magnet
before.
day.
But
Yeah.
I know it makes total sense, but I love it. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No. You should use it. It's a really fun one. But it was a magnet day. And yeah, my 2 of my bandmates were actually playing in the band that was going on before me. And they said that they saw me walk in, which I don't remember because I was just like in it. I was like, I don't know what I was on. It was just go for me. But I remember them coming up to me at sound check, and I was like, I like went up to the green room first. Oh my god, I'm such a mess. I'm trying to see. I can't even keep the timeline straight. So how are you going to keep the timeline straight? But first thing that happens when I go to the venue is I go to the green room. I realize I have forgotten my shoes. So
You were barefoot.
I was wearing like ugly ass shoes. Like I was not wearing shoes that I could wear on stage.
You weren't wearing rocking shoes.
Correct. I wasn't wearing shoe but
But you
imagine
didn't
like
show up shoeless.
I didn't show up shoeless, but imagine
That's good.
if you like left the gym and you're wearing like the grossest pair of shoes you own, and somebody's like, "Hey man, can you do a TED talk about your podcast in 10 minutes?"
I see what
Like
you're saying. Yeah.
that's how it felt. I forgot my shoes. And I did not have a podium to stand behind
Oh,
during
there you
my TED
go.
talk. So I forgot my shoes. I'm like getting ready in a panic. I forgot all my makeup, and there's another girl who's playing that night, and she's like, "Oh, it's gonna be a really important night." And I
Like,
was
oh,
like,
perfect.
"Oh, is it?" I was like, "Why?" She's like, "Oh, well, the drummer of Sonic Youth is coming, and this guy that did photos for Kurt Cobain and Courtney Love is coming, and they're really excited to see my set. Like, you're on right before me, so they'll probably catch you." And I was like, "All right, sounds great."
Good thing
So
I got my shoes.
exactly, great, good, yeah, good for me wearing these grimy ass shoes. And so I go into the bathroom and I call my best friend and I'm like, "You have to bring me something." Like, I'm like, "Can you bring me like a pair of tights, makeup?" Like, I was just like, anything, like just give me something so that I don't have to face this photographer and the drummer of Sonic Youth, like looking like I just went through a breakup. Um, and so, I'm in the green room freaking out. I'm waiting for my best friend. I'm like zooming in and out. And then I go to do my sound check barefoot. And at the time I had this shell pink Fender Mustang that was like my first, like my big girl guitar that I gifted myself.
Dope.
Yeah. And I was wearing like a pink satin moment. And my two bandmates, Shelby and Maria, my future bandmates at the time, Shelby and Maria came up to me, and I just remember Shelby going, "Your guitar matches your outfit," and I said, "Thanks, I just broke up with somebody." Like,
That was your response.
yeah, I was like, I just went through a breakup. Like, I had no idea what to do with myself, like whatsoever. And we like go back up to the green room and we're all chatting, and they're like playing around with my guitar, and they're like, "So what happened with you in this breakup?" And I was explaining it, and I just remember both of them like going out of their way to be so incredibly kind to me, like not just normal nice to me. Like, it got to the end of the night and I was kind of doing the I just broke up with someone sitting in the corner, staring at your lap kind of
Sure.
thing. And Shelby comes and sits next to me and just like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, whatever I said. And she's like, "Do you need to go home? Like, can I help you call an Uber?" Like,
Do I need to call someone?
yeah, basically. But it
Right.
was so nice. Like, it was just so kind. And then it was also like, I remember that I couldn't get paid until the end of the night and I was just like so miserable and I really wanted to leave. And so, they were like, "Don't worry, like you go home, like we'll figure it out." You know what I mean? Like, just really nice. And then they came up to me both drunk at the end of the night and were like, "So why do you have a band?" Like,
Oh, sure. So you
yeah,
just played
they're
by
like,
yourself on like what
I
your Fender Mustang and what, an amp?
yeah,
And you? That's
and
pretty
singing
punk rock. That's
barefoot,
amazing.
literally
Barefoot.
just barefoot.
So
Yeah.
your friend never showed with the shoes and the
She showed,
tights.
but she could not bring me shoes. I don't know
She
why.
forgot the shoes.
She forgot the shoes. She did bring tights. But yeah, I also used to do this thing where I brought like a dozen roses to every show and I would put them on stage while I was performing.
Uh-huh.
And so it was like me, and I like sometimes I would like eat them like as like part of
Yeah.
my bit. So I'm literally like barefoot in this pink outfit with my Mustang, like eating flowers on stage. But for some reason my bandmates thought I was cool.
That
And
is cool.
yeah, and then my other future bandmate Alex, who was my, buddy before, because he was just kind of, a fan of Pom Pom Squad. He's an amazing guitarist. He was playing in other bands, also just happened to be there. So we like all met and we're all, on that day together.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah. And I think the next week I wrote out actually, or
Okay.
no, maybe 2 weeks later.
Wow. And then did you and so now that you have your new with your new members, did you guys all go to the studio together to record that record?
Yeah, well, first I wrote it And you know, Shelby and Maria had been like, hey, we were serious about like being in your band. So I was like, oh, let's start practicing together. And I had written those songs and I, you know, didn't know what to do with them. And I was like, oh, well, why don't we play around with a couple songs I'm writing? I'm thinking about doing an EP. And so we started practicing together, doing like my old set that I did with my previous bandmates and then doing these new songs. And we like did we started doing shows together. So we had like performed a little bit and we're kind of like letting the songs marinate by playing them. And eventually we realized we needed a lead guitarist. So, you know, Alex came on, and we practiced those songs together and would just play them live. You know, we went from playing like 3 times a week to like eventually being able to just like, you know, cherry pick a couple shows a month.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really nice. Like you know, the one brag that I have is like ever since the first show I played in New York, I've never had to book my own show since.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, and I didn't realize how big of a deal that was, I think, for a long time. But that's something I'm really proud that's something I'm really proud of. Like I'm really proud of our show, or I was really proud of our show when we could do it.
Sure.
But I feel like, yeah, having Pom Pom Squad, words are fun. Pom Pom Squad as a live band is really like where its heart was for a long time. So eventually, when we were kind of getting the audience responses we wanted from Al, which is kind of, you know, we would sort of test things by doing them live.
Sure.
And if people reacted, like it was done a little bit. And so we went into the studio with a friend. A guy we met at a show named Tommy Ordway. And he was like, oh, I have this studio called Mousetown and you guys should totally come record in it. You know, he's like, I'll do it for super cheap. Like, I'm just a huge fan. And we were like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. Like a studio. It was a practice space and it was very dusty.
So
and I
the
told him this
studio turned into like his studio apartment.
It was
He's like,
not
don't
as
worry,
big
that's
as a
just my
studio
mattress.
apartment.
Don't worry about it.
Oh my god, and we love him. He's still like he's squad is what we like to say. He's a
Okay.
friend of the band. He's part of the squad. But yeah, we like showed up and we showed up and he like lets us into the practice space and I think like we were like, okay, yeah, cool, thanks. He's like, oh, I'm gonna go check something out, and I'll just like we're just like, what? You know, like what? What's happening? So, you know, we ended up doing like 2 days in this, like the practice space was so dusty. And this is the part where you say, how dusty was it?
How dusty was it?
The practice space was so dusty that I could not do vocals for either of the days that we recorded.
You're just like,
because
it was like chalk in your
literally
mouth.
I don't have asthma and I would fully have asthma attacks after we
Oh
got like I was like wheezing, like we'd be driving back from recording and I would be like like I fully could not breathe. So we
Did you
ended up
bring
doing
like
all
an air purifier or something to the next?
honestly that would have been I have one. I should have bought yeah, that was
like,
my
so
mistake.
I'm gonna set this up so I can sing today.
Yeah, I wish you had been there now. We ended up recording actually in our friend's closet.
Really?
Yeah, she's a singer. Her name is Rachel, and she has a project called Mima Good, and she had made this booth in her, you know, in her studio apartment that was just a little box that was lined in velvet, and she, you know, had the little mic set up and had the wire running through the wall, like, you know, into this space. And so I did all the vocals in one day in a closet.
That's awesome.
So it was like the DIY-est of DIY records.
That's amazing. That's
yeah.
And well, not only that, like, so this came out 2019 too. So you said
Yeah.
you guys are like a live band, and you know you get this EP out. You're grinding through, you know, apartments and whatever's to get it together.
Yeah.
And asthma attacks and all that in between. Like, and then 2020 happens. Like, did you even have a chance to really promote it,
No, we did
support
not.
it?
No. I mean, basically, like, what the thing that was cool about OW, is, we all had this great experience recording together. Tommy was such an amazing engineer. Rachel was just so willing to help out. Like, we really had this kind of thing going. And around that time, I was an intern for a publicity firm, and I got hired as a junior publicist eventually. Uh, and on the start of the first day of the job, we had decided to release the song Heavy Heavy, which was the first kind of single of that EP. And we also, we were getting better and better shows at that point. So, the biggest show we got at the time is we had just gotten booked on a show with the band Soccer Mommy.
Oh wow. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know
which
that
was
band.
super exciting. And I basically timed the release of this song around the announce of the show so that, people would kind of be like, oh, this band is playing with Soccer Mommy, like, let me check out their music. And it was something that I could really, stand by. So yeah, we were playing all these shows. Things were great. That was kind of our biggest promo at the time. But on the first day of my job as a publicist, Heavy Heavy just like appeared on Stereogum. I have no idea how it happened. I don't know who who discovered it or whatever, but it was like my first piece of national press ever.
Mhm.
And my boss was like, "Is this you?" Because I'm on the cover art, and I was like, "Yeah, that is me."
You're like, yeah.
I was like, "Yes, it is." And she was basically like, "Listen, if you want to do PR from your desk, like, feel free to use our resources, and you can do the pitching yourself." And I was pitching mostly like tours for other bands and kind of regional press, like blogs and stuff. Um, so I kind of started like really pushing for Pom Pom Squad like through that, in that way. And then eventually things started getting bigger and bigger, and so the company started taking Pom Pom Squad more seriously uh, as like a client. And we did have this incredibly organic growth that just came from that time releasing those 3 songs. And kind of by accident, I ended up having a proper release plan,
Mhm.
um having planned out these 3 singles, each like a month apart and all attached to a show or a piece of press or whatever. um so things went great. And like then by the time Al came out, we had we booked our headline show, and we sold it out on a Sunday night. It was like a 250 cat venue, and we were the headliner. And it
It's
was like our
huge.
yeah, it was our first headline show. It was I mean, it was really exciting and like sort of unbelievable. And I cried, and like we all cried, and it was just fantastic. And lots of people in the audience cried. My favorite thing about the Pom Pom Squad shows are literally just staring out at a bunch of people who are sobbing.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Like we
I,
went to record our next record, and the dude who owned the studio was like, "Yeah, I was talking to my friend who's like a big dude, and he was like, 'Oh, you're recording with Pom Pom Squad?' Yeah, I went to their show and I just cried a lot."
That's cool.
Yeah, that's kind of our
That's,
reputation, I guess.
sure, sure. Well, okay. And then so did you re-release Lux? Like tell me about Lux now.
Yeah, so Lux, well, okay, 2020 obviously panned everything. So we had all this promo for Al that just never happened.
Mhm.
Um
I saw that you're supposed to
and
support like Front Bottoms, who I love.
yeah, we were supposed to tour with the Front Bottoms. And it's funny, that was going to be our that was going to be our second ever tour. We were going to do a tour with the band Disc on the East Coast, and then we had booked the Front Bottoms, and we were going to play like the venue that I went to homecoming at in high school.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it was like the biggest. It was like a 5,000 capacity room. It was going to be the biggest one that we played on that tour.
That's fun.
And then it did not happen. It was just
That was
gone.
supposed to happen on that Front Bottom store.
Yeah,
Oh, a real quick funny story about Front Bottoms, real quick.
please tell
So
me.
my buddy has his own face tattooed on his like the back. Like he has a logo of his face, and he has it tattooed on his back. Not the guy from the Front Bottoms. Just this my own friends
I have some
face.
question about. I have a question about your friend.
Okay, go
What?
for it.
I think I just have some general questions. Please continue.
Okay, well,
Sorry.
he hosts a radio show in San Diego. He's like the local music guy. So somebody created this logo of him years ago, and he ended up getting it tattooed on his back of his shoulder. It's like a
Mhm.
very cartoony version of himself.
Okay.
Anyway, so we were at a show, the Front Bottoms played, and Brian Sella, with the singer, was there. We're taking pictures with them. And remember when that face swap like thing was popular on Instagram?
Yeah.
So so somebody did one with Brian's face and then my buddy's face of his face tattoo. And
It
it was like
registered the face tattoo.
it's the creepiest picture I've ever seen.
Well, now you're
It's
gonna
my
have to send it to me because
I will.
I
It's
need to
hilarious.
know. I'm a
It's
visual learner.
I'll show it to you because you'll be like, wow, that's super creepy. Because
That
it's
sounds
like
ridiculous.
it's a face tattoo, but now it's his face. And then Brian's face on my buddy's back tattoo. It just you actually you have to see it. It's
I really
crazy
do want to
looking.
see it.
It's
When
really
I was
disturbing.
I was a little concerned that your friend had like a hyper realistic tattoo of their own
No,
face
no, it's like
because
really
that would
cartoony.
be
It's very
okay.
like simple. It looks like Simpsons-ish drawing.
Love that for I love that.
So there you
God
go. So
bless.
sorry.
That's
Anyway.
incredible. No, this is what I could have had on the Front Bottom store. I could have seen
Right.
this in real life. But yeah, we were doing that. We were doing South by. You know, South by was the first like domino to blow over in cancellations, I feel like.
Mhm.
But yeah, Lux, you know, we recorded. There have been like 5 versions of Lux, I think, since the inception of this band.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, but this most recent one we recorded in the same session that we recorded our album. So it's like the newest one.
And
Yeah,
is it so this is going to be you have a record coming out. This was just the first single that you put out?
yes.
Okay, tell me
We
about the
have a
record.
record. Uh, yeah, we have a record coming out soon.
Okay.
Um, I'm super excited about it. Well, Lux was our first release on City Slang, which is a label that we just signed to.
How did
Um,
that relationship form?
that relationship formed because when we were doing South by, you know, it's like by that time we had gotten a lot of buzz, and it's kind of like you start to pop up on Spotify's like algorithmic like thing, so people start scouting you. You know, it's like we talked to like a couple major labels, which is hilarious to me because it's like we just
Wow.
seem like the most unlikely candidate, you know, like me like walking into the office like in my clunky shoes, and you know, which I was really cool. Like I'm very grateful that I got to have all those conversations. But
Mhm.
you know, I also, one of the things that I studied, you know, when I was in school for music is, you know, I was really interested in learning the business and figuring out, you know, how to read a contract and, you know, what terms were going to be most important for me to know as a young artist to make sure that I get my dues and get what I
Sure.
deserve. You know, because music has worth, and I think sort of like the acting phenomenon, people are like, well, if you say no, you know, you're difficult or this opportunity is never going to come for you again. um but something that I learned from acting school is like, and it's kind of like, if you know, if somebody's gonna never want to work with you again because you say that something is fucked up, or like, you know, it's something you don't want to do in the first place, like what does it matter, you know?
Mhm.
Did you really want to work with them anyway? So we dealt with a couple labels, you know, only a couple of those conversations actually got to the contract stage. But we were supposed to meet City Slang after South by, or during South by.
Mhm.
I need to like practice speaking. Can you tell how long I've been inside? Talking
It's
only to my cat in a
sure.
baby voice. Um, so we were supposed to meet with them at South by and, you know, have our first kind of meeting. They're based in Berlin, so it was gonna, you know, it was gonna be like kind of a thing. Like we are all going to like a winery, I think, which was very exciting, but obviously never happened. And after
Right.
South by, you know, all of this buzz that we'd accumulated, like all of this interest, like it all just kind of disappeared. You know, the music industry is really fickle, and we had this release that we never got to support with a tour, and it was almost like it was too late, you know,
Mhm.
to do anything for it. Um, so everything kind of disappeared, and you know, for the first couple months, I was just mourning a lot of work that I'd done to, you know, get where we were, especially because like we weren't signed at the time. You know, I didn't really like have a lot of support in that way. Um, uh, but yeah, City Slang was one of the few people that actually decided to continue the conversation, and basically were like, you know, they've never seen us play. They were like, just because that didn't happen doesn't mean we forgot about you. We're still interested in you and what, you know, what you have to say. And the conversations were very long, and I was very skeptical and side-eye and was asking too many questions. But you know, they were super understanding and really willing to compromise, and I got to negotiate a very important part of my contract that, you know, I was kind of like, I'm not gonna compromise over this, and that's final. Um, you know, and we were able to come to an understanding in a way that like made sense for both of us and made me feel really respected, you know, as a person who owns a fucking business. Like I think it's
Sure.
funny because a lot of people don't want to, you know, it's kind of like I've definitely been treated like I'm like a sellout for equating the band with like you know, the kind of art versus commerce conversation. But it is a business, and if you just kind of say, well, I'm just going to make the art and let everyone else deal with it, like
Anywhere.
you're not going to get what you're worth,
Sure.
you know.
Exactly.
uh I just, yeah, I don't know. So that was why I really liked City Slang. And I just feel very trusted. Like I was like, you know, I've always wanted to do this video for Lux where I recreated my favorite scenes from Sofia Coppola's The Virgin Suicides. And they were
Mhm.
like, all right, let's do it. Sounds great,
That's
you know.
awesome. Yeah. And he gets to be on the same label as Not a Surf, and that's cool, right?
More on that later. I don't, did you see the series of tweets?
Oh no, I just was there something
Oh,
that happened that I missed
oh
on Not a
yeah.
Surf? Uh-oh.
Yeah, you did. So yeah, we're on the same label now. And not no no no, you didn't miss this about them. This is just a Pom Pom Squad, not a this is the universe colliding.
I thought you were gonna be like, and this terrible thing happened with
Oh my
that
god,
band, and you
no.
need to cut this all out. I
Me
was gonna be like,
trashing my label mate,
oh
not a surf.
no,
Oh
no, no,
my
no, no. I
god,
thought like,
no.
yeah, never
Oh,
mind.
well
Go
thank
for
God.
it.
No, not
You
perfect
scared me there for a
angels.
second.
I'm
I was
so
like,
sorry.
what
Well,
did they do?
I forgot that saying, "Oh, did you hear about X?" means something terrible happened.
Sure.
Which literally saying, "Did you hear about X?" is legitimate because DMX just died. So it
I
just
know.
all
Ouch.
it's hard. It's hard out here.
It is. It
God,
is.
it's been just such a terrible week of. It's just been a terrible week. Anyway, not a surf. Yeah, I mean this was kind of a surreal moment for me because um the song Popular by Not a Surf is one of my favorites ever. The music video is one of my favorites ever. You know, it was, well, I found out recently that it was written a year before I was born.
The
But
song was?
yeah, but I've always loved it. You know, I love it. It was such a, you know, an inspiration, kind of the early Pom Pom Squad aesthetic. And so I tweeted, you know, I was listening to the song and I was like, yeah, next, like I'll recreate the entire video for Popular and I'll play all the characters. And then my label was like, hey Matthew, what do you think? And like tagged him. And I was like, oh no. Like
Whoa.
I was
Whoops.
like, I can't make jokes like this anymore because I'm actually on a label with not a surf.
Sure. I yeah.
Like it was very funny, and like he responded and was like, oh my god, you have to do this.
That's
And
so
I was like,
cool.
okay. It was a huge nerd out moment for me.
That's awesome. I love their
Huge.
record. You know who you are. That That album was so
Wonderful.
good. I mean, all their records are awesome, but that one, I mean, that was only a few years ago that came out. I think they have a newer record too. I think they released a record
Honestly,
within the last year.
God bless them
I
for
know.
for giving us the content we deserve.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Mia, for doing this. I really appreciate it. You've been awesome.
Thank you for having me. Hopefully, some of that is coherent and
All of
is
it's
usable.
coherent. And it's all usable. We're using it all. So
I'm glad. Oh,
run
yeah,
with it.
good. Just,
That's
it's
how we
on
do
the
it.
internet now. Post.
Exactly. Boom. I have one more question for you before I let you go, though. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Oh, yes. My advice for aspiring artists is the most important piece of advice I've ever been given is one that I said earlier, which is when you start, your taste level and your skill level are not going to be aligned. So if you're not making the things that you want fast enough, quote unquote, it's because you haven't done it enough. So you need to keep trying. I always say never rip out any of the pages of your journal. Don't delete, the notes apps, the little note app things you write in your phone. Like, let yourself write something dumb. Like, don't judge yourself while you're writing it. Just like get it onto the page and you can always edit it later. Or you can always edit it and say, oh, that was stupid. But honestly, I keep a lot of my old journals, and a lot of the times the lyrics that I thought were dumb I actually really like now. So don't get rid of it. Just don't do it. And also, you don't have to share anything until you're ready. Don't let the content machine make you think that what you're making is for everybody else. It should be for you first and foremost.
Bringing it backward.